Great. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so Heron, if we could flip to the next slide, please. We're going to go through a bit of a Q&A session now. And we had a few questions come in. So we're going to essentially go through your questions as they come in. And we have our panelists here, Heron, Matt, and Ashley to answer questions. If there's anything we're not able to answer, we'll definitely take it back and attempt to provide you with a response as part of our forthcoming engagement reporting and summary. And if there's anything that's not relevant to this particular project, then we will provide you with some direction on where you might be able to get an answer. But Ashley, maybe we could start with one of the first questions that has come in. We did have a couple of questions come in during the presentation that have been answered in the chat. So if you're looking for where that is, you can pop open the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen and see the questions. The first one was, what is the current density of people per hectare in Preston today? And the latest data that we have is from 2019. It's 55 persons and jobs per hectare compared to the target that we're trying to get to of 150. There was also a question about the conversation about preserving and beautifying the historical facades of downtown. And Matt provided an answer that heritage staff are working through the currently listed heritage properties and will be doing a community walk with members of the project team to determine the best courses of action for heritage resources. We had a question just asking if you do have priorities expectations, would it be better to provide them right now through the Q&A panel, or should that come through the survey? And the answer to that is please do whatever is comfortable for you. If you're able to go in and provide them in the survey in more detail, please do. If they're kind of high-level comments and you want to share them right now, please go ahead. And please also make sure you're sharing any questions that you have. Okay, so one of the other questions, and Ashley, maybe I could have you answer this one. Could you talk a bit about the lifespan of the plan and how long it's going to take for the changes that we're discussing and the growth that we're discussing to take shape?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Zara. Um, yeah, this is a long-term plan, and in planning, we're often talking like 30 years out. So the objective is to have this vision in place to meet the change over the long term. And part of it is by having enabling policies as well as something that we're still sorting out is implementation regarding land use regulation. Is if it is all like lined up and in place, it could facilitate some of the change happening more easily. Part of that is, dependent on broader macroeconomics and market conditions, however. So,
Okay, great. We also had talked about preserving the small town feel of Preston. So we had a question come in. Could you comment on generally how that small town feel can be preserved when you're starting to permit more of that high rise, more commercial, more what we call higher density kinds of uses? And how are we going to make sure that the feel of Preston is sustained without it becoming similar to other parts of Cambridge or other parts of the region, which are a lot more commercial in nature and support, for example, big box stores and an
mhm.
area like Hespeler Road, for instance. What is our approach to considering the character of Preston in the development of the policies for the secondary plan?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is a challenge, just bigger picture. It is a challenging concept, I think, because we are talking about change. Like there is some change that will be happening, and the opportunity through the secondary plan is to do what we can to have policies to direct and influence the built form, which is a planning term for how buildings look and ultimately feel. And some of the initial thinking on it is, for example, Tierney was talking about the mixed use core designation. And what we're proposing in the policies is to if we're permitting higher buildings in that area, to require a step back after 2 stories to maintain the experience at the street level, as well as that type of commercial function of Kane. So the difference with King Street and Preston, it's a regional road, it's a key thoroughfare, it connects to the region and more broadly, but it is also like a local street that I think is quite vibrant with businesses. And the objective is to maintain and support that main street function. And there's also other opportunities through setbacks, which is step back, sorry, I mean, is when the building is designed to step away from the street before it has taller stories. And that can be used to facilitate um, how areas transition and the relation between geographies, to try to minimize some of those impacts as we're introducing taller buildings into the area.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. If there are any follow-up questions or anything else that is unclear, please feel free to add a question into the Q&A panel. We did have a couple of other questions come in that I'll just quickly go over the responses that have been shared. So one of them was, will the areas as identified as having undersized right-of-way? So as Harini pointed out, the city has done a study that showed that there were a number of roadways that are under 16 meters in width, and so some improvements would be needed. And the question was, are they all going to need to be fixed? And the answer to that is that generally speaking, undersized rights of way are widened as properties redevelop. So as the properties are assembled for redevelopment, the road widenings are taken to allow for road improvements to be implemented when enough properties have redeveloped. Another question was, will expropriations be required? And at this time, with the secondary plan process, no expropriations are associated with this secondary plan. We did have another question come in about inclusionary zoning. The region will be reviewing a report regarding inclusionary zoning in December. And recommends that it would not be adopted at this time, and what would the implications be for the Preston secondary plan. And the response to that is that inclusionary zoning is a standalone project, and it's only permitted within the major transit station area, which is a subset of the secondary plan. It's not the entire secondary plan area, and there are no proposed policies in the secondary plan that would initiate inclusionary zoning. So please stay tuned. A future report will come forward to council to address inclusionary zoning citywide in Cambridge. So that will be a future process for the city to undertake. And if you're wondering where to find the maps that Harini was providing a preview of, please do go to the project website. You'll see a heading that says workshop, online activity, visualizing the future, and there's a start button there which you can click on that will take you through the activity where all the maps are located. Another question that came in, how will the secondary plan integrate with future ION/BRT expansion? And Matt, maybe I could have you answer that one for us.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. So, in terms of potential future expansion of the ION or the BRT, the secondary plan is working towards the provincial target of 160 persons and jobs per hectare. So that's a combination of being able to support the rapid transit, whether that's in the form of light rail or bus rapid transit. It's also generally to support more commercial and a broader scope of land uses within Preston. So it has that opportunity for Preston being somewhere to live, work, and play. The secondary plan allows for flexibility in the different land uses and some of the configurations within the major transit station area. So it wouldn't specifically plan for an expansion of ION Stage 2, but it will certainly allow for the natural growth of that system. And there's also the opportunity for staff in the future to look at updates or amendments to the secondary plan. So if there is a component of ION Stage 2 that is somehow vastly different than what's been proposed currently, we would have an opportunity to look at the policies of the plan and see if anything needed to be updated.
Great, thank you, Matt. We also did have a question come in that was answered, and we'll just read it out. Do the region and province have control over King Street, and what is the city allowed in the end? And basically, King Street is a regional road, so changes to the street itself would be the purview of the region of Waterloo. But maybe Ashley, you could talk a bit about what is within the purview of the secondary plan in terms of planning for the land uses or the types of densities and the types of building permissions, and like Hirini was talking about setbacks and stepbacks, et cetera, that are along King Street.
hmm Yeah, sure. So on King Street specifically too, it was recently improved in terms of like streetscape elements and there's cycling lanes. I think that's at least within the past 10 years or so that that occurred. So when we're talking about what happens on King Street in terms of its role as a truck route, for example, that was identified by the region, and some of what happens in the actual right of way, it is within the control of the region, which just emphasizes some of the importance of the active transportation map that you can take a look at in the cycling routes that have been identified by the city, as well as Zara was suggesting, is the city does have control and the opportunity to direct some of the policies and land use that's permitted adjacent to King Street. So that we would still be able to provide policies on those areas that are on either side of King.
Great, thank you. We had a question come in about what we look to or how we develop policies for the secondary plan. Are there any model cities that you look towards as an example, or where do the policies come from in terms of understanding what the precedents might be, where things have been done before, what has worked in other places, what has not worked, etc.?
Yeah,
Um,
I would say sorry, I just took it upon myself
yes, please.
to start answering. Yeah, I would say we are in the process right now of starting to develop some of the draft secondary plan policies, and part of that will be taking a look at other geographies and building on the experience, I guess, within the region itself with Kitchener and Waterloo. So I don't have exact examples right now, but I don't know, Matt, if you had anything that you wanted to share, but.
Thanks, Ashley. That pretty well covers we look for similar sized municipalities to Cambridge, and then we of course look to our neighbors in Kitchener and Waterloo so that there's consistency across the region, and then try to balance what are the differences between Cambridge and the other reference municipalities, but also more importantly, the differences between Preston and the rest of Cambridge, acknowledging, as we said earlier, that Preston very much has the small town feel. So it's important to acknowledge how Preston differentiates itself from the broader city.
Yeah, and even within the region, the ion stops are like they're in different geographies. There's Fairway, which is more like Hespeler, large big box commercial. And then there's more that are downtown and existing built up areas. And then I do think Preston is a bit unique in this example. So um, yeah, definitely considering local context is a key part of what we need to do here.
Great, thank you. Um, I see, Matt, you're answering one of the questions, so we'll give you a moment there. Well, as a reminder, again, we are here we're going to be taking questions for the remaining 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to share them. If you have comments or anything like that as well, feel free to share that.
And sorry, I'm
Uh,
just going to jump in and speak to the question that I was just answering.
yes, please.
I know I typed out an answer, but there's a little bit more nuance to it. So the question was with regards to form-based zoning. So many of you are likely aware that staff will be bringing forward a report on form-based zoning. The Preston Secondary Plan study area has been um, removed from that form-based zoning mapping area because of the secondary plan. So as we go through the secondary planning process, there will be what we call implementing zoning that comes forward. So there will be a secondary plan document. There will be an official plan amendment that makes necessary changes to the City of Cambridge official plan, not only to add the secondary plan, but to add any definitions or additional land use designations, anything we need to implement the secondary plan. And then there's the zoning that will go along with that. If council adopts a form-based zoning model, then any of the properties within the Preston secondary plan area that would have been subject to the form-based zoning, in all likelihood, will receive those same zoning regulations. So the slightly longer, complicated answer is that form-based zoning does not form a part of the Preston secondary plan, but if it's adopted across the city by council, then through the implementation process of the secondary plan, you will likely see that form-based zoning come forward at that point.
Great, thank you. We had a question just about the recording. So yes, what's going to happen after this meeting is we will caption the meeting presentation and share it on the project website for folks who weren't able to attend. And the online activity is going to be open for a few weeks. And Matt, maybe you could remind me when we are planning to close that. But it will be available if you would like to share it with your friends and neighbors and anyone else who was, take it yourself, of course, and with anyone else who wasn't able to attend tonight. As your comments at this juncture are really important towards refining what we have put out for consideration as the kind of draft preliminary concept. And Ashley, maybe you could talk a bit about how we plan to use the comments and feedback that we're gathering in this round of engagement.
Yeah, sure. So we will be, well, we got a lot of feedback last week in person. So once we also get feedback through the online survey as an outcome of this, we'll be reviewing all of it and trying to have an understanding of where some of the consistent themes are in terms of people's responses to where we're proposing taller buildings and if there's any feedback on the actual intended function of the land use designations. And then we'll be meeting with city staff to consolidate and come together and see what changes can be made, recognizing some of the other objectives that we have around density and planning for growth. And some of the other maps, as an example, for one of them is asking about intersection improvements, and if there's feedback there, how that could be used is it would be included in a schedule to give direction to the city and the region when they're doing their next round of transportation master plan, long range planning updates to take a look at those intersections. So depending on the tenor of the feedback will influence how it's used. And if it's not something directly spatial, like I had said earlier, there may be an opportunity to pull out something, even if it's not direct feedback, if there's consistent sentiment about the importance of protecting a view from Riverside Park. Maybe there's specific policies we can have in that geography that would influence and try to address some of the concerns.
Great, thank you so much.
And Zara, to your question, we had
Yeah,
decided
I think it was mid-December for the
on
survey.
mid-December to close the survey.
Yep.
Okay, so then the survey closing mid-December, we should have a summary of the information prepared in early January after the winter break.
Yeah, so if you happen to want to kind of take a few days to think about your feedback and share it online, you have a little bit of time. And once we share the report, we will also be coming back kind of later on in the winter time with more kind of information and an update. So, Ashley, maybe if you wanted to talk just about the next steps, like when people should expect to hear from us again with the next iteration of the secondary plan concepts and draft policies.
Yeah, sure. So basically 2026, I think it's all within plan for within Q1. To Matt's point on the form-based zoning, there's maybe some implementation related questions that we need answered, which may influence some of the timing of how it's brought forward. But generally speaking, it'll be like late winter, early spring type of timing for the next round.
Great. Okay, so we have actually gotten through all of the questions and comments that had come in during the session. If you do have another question or something you'd like to ask, please feel free to submit it. And just so that you're aware, we will be providing, as Matt mentioned, the reporting in early January. We'll have both the summary from this meeting and the Q&A, as well as what we hear through the online survey. And if there is any feedback that you have around how you would like to be engaged, how you'd like to participate, please do share that with us. Let us know if there's anything that we can do to support your participation, make it easier for you to share your feedback. Community input is a vital part of this process, and it's helped us so much so far in developing what you've seen so far tonight. A lot of what we are presenting is directly informed by what we've heard from the community to date. So we really want to make sure that we continue to reflect the community's priorities, concerns, as well as your hopes and your dreams for Preston into the planning process. So please do continue to share that with us. We're almost at 7:25, so if there are no more questions and if everyone has gotten what they were looking for tonight, Ashley and Matt, I'll hand it over to you. Oh, looks like
We
we are
yeah, we
anticipating.
have one more question coming in.
Okay, we'll
Um,
give folks a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I'll hand it over to you, Ashley and Matt, if there's anything else you wanted to comment on in terms of the engagement so far, anything that you've heard, or anything that you'd like the participants to know.
Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, Ashley. I just wanted to kind of put on the record that I've been very happy to see the number of people in Preston who've come out, not always in the best of weather either, to provide an opinion, to take part in this process, and really to let us know what it is you're looking for. And I know that we operate in a little bit of a different world now in planning than when I first started 20 some years ago. Um, but I've been very impressed by the very positive conversations. And even when there's been very strong differences of opinion, it's been really, I don't know how to put this properly. It's been really positive, very productive conversations. So people have allowed each other to express their opinions and provided their counterpoints. And it's been, a really good experience overall. So I just wanted to thank everyone for coming along on this journey with us and for, giving us your time and attention.
Great, thank you, Matt. Okay, so another question is relating to the heritage elements of the buildings that are on King Street today. Are we planning to preserve building facades on King Street? So, for example, the ones that exist right now that have preserved heritage walls, etc. And Matt, maybe I could throw that one over to you, and then Ashley, you could jump in and add anything else.
Sure. So the certainly any of the buildings that are listed or designated, our heritage staff, along with the consulting team, are looking at all those listed properties. The province changed the way that listings work within municipalities. So there's a bit of a time constraint to get through all of the properties we currently have listed. We are not planning currently for any sort of a heritage conservation district, anything of that nature within the Preston area, but we are certainly aware of the volume of heritage properties that exist. Certainly, we'd be looking at opportunities to preserve the heritage characteristics where they exist. And then we would be working closely with our colleagues across the hall in development planning. If an application came forward to redevelop a property, we'd be having conversations with them and giving them different options on how to preserve those heritage characteristics. So we don't have a specific instrument in mind, but we will be putting some careful thought into the policies that are written for the secondary plan to allow our heritage staff and our development staff to put forward options and recommendations to be able to work with the development community as they start to redevelop some of those key properties.
Great, thank you, Matt. And just for folks who may have joined a little bit late and may have missed some of the key points, Harini, could I ask you to just flip back one slide to the next step screen for us? Thank you. And Ashley, if you wouldn't mind just reiterating what the next
Yeah,
steps are
sure.
and our kind of timeline for what's coming next.
Yep. So after this, we're going to make this recording presentation available for people to view at their leisure. And there's the online activity that'll be open and available for people to reply to until about mid-December. And then with that feedback, we're going to consider what we hear online as well as from the in-person sessions and have a meeting with staff to review and consider all the feedback and perspectives, including with some agencies to develop a preferred land use concept. And in parallel, we will be starting to develop the actual secondary plan policies. So once that is in draft and we have an updated concept, we'll be coming back to the public for the third round of engagement, which is expected to be late winter, I'll say late winter, I think is what we're aiming for. And there'll be further opportunity to give feedback on where this is going once what the policies are in place.
Great, thank you, Ashley. We did have another question come in about the city's approach to collecting development fees or incentivizing development. So the question was basically, are we going to draw on Kitchener's precedent for waiving development fees in order to promote development? And the answer to that is that there is a core area community improvement plan. So Preston is a core area in Cambridge. And there is a community improvement plan that currently exempts application fees in Preston, and it expires on December 31st of this year. But there are no plans currently to renew or extend that. And Matt, if you have any other comments or anything you'd like to add to that response.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. There have been some comparisons to Kitchener. I believe Kitchener's waiving of fees and charges is related to their Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives. I don't know that for certain, but I believe that's where that connection comes from. So affordable housing is currently development charges are waived under the Development Charge Act, as are developments by not-for-profit corporations. So those incentives will still exist, but there aren't plans currently to extend the community improvement plan that would waive application fees as well.
Great, thank you, Matt. Okay, so we. Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Sorry, can I just, so this is sort of going back in time, but Harry, can you go back to the land use map? I just want to highlight something, recognizing all the heritage questions that we were getting. Um, Sorry, and it's like, yeah, all the way in the back. So once you take a look at the online map, there may be a certain area that stands out to you, which is in the north near where the planned ion station and here you can, yeah, around here. So you can see the dark purple is intended for a higher amount of change. And on the proposed height map, you'll see it proposes to permit up to 18 stories. And then the light yellow is low-rise residential, which is permitted to proposed to permit up to 3 stories. So this transition or that contrast of heights really stood out to people in the session last week, and it stands out to us as well. But I wanted to explain why that is there, and it is because there is a large cluster of mostly listed but some designated heritage properties in that area south of Chopin and north of, I think it's Waterloo or maybe it's Dover. So that is why it looks like that. And there is an opportunity to have policies to direct how the transition in those areas relate to each other. But if you think it should look different, by all means, give us your feedback. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that when you're taking a look at this.
Great, thank you all. Okay, so we find ourselves at the end of our session for this evening. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Thank you so much for your questions and your comments. We look forward to sharing the report and the feedback with you. And we're very grateful for all the time that you've spent with us this evening. And I'll hand it over to Matt to close us out for this evening.
Thank you, Zara. I wanted to thank everyone again for joining us this evening, giving us your time and attention. We're getting into a busy season, and so I know it sometimes can take a little bit of extra effort to coordinate coming to these meetings, and it's definitely something that helps us make sure the plan we put forward reflects the desires of the community. Just wanted to thank everyone once again.
Thank you all so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye.